This is Common Sense Generation. Common Sense Generation. Good day to you, the viewers of Common Sense Generation. Today we'd like to talk about American politics and if we can find any common sense in it. With me is Roman Joch, an expert in political philosophy. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Roman, you look at this political sphere right now in US. We have Republicans, we have Democrats, and two candidates for the president who both seem a little bit irrational. Where are we right now? Why we, as the Western world, came to this, and US to this situation when majority of the society is laughing at both of them?
Yes. Majority of Americans, two different majorities, are against both Biden and Trump. They don't like them to be presidents, and it's something like a bad luck for America that both parties have ended up with two old men, two imperfect men. And what's the reason? Well, there are different reasons for that. And by a bad luck, there is a coincidence that both parties just were incapable of selecting anybody better or younger. Among Democrats, the reason was that in 2020, Joe Biden was the centrist. He presented himself as a centrist, normal guy who would be a bridge to the future. So he implied that I will serve only one term, only 4 years, and then I will pass the torch to somebody younger. And he was elected as a return to normalcy after 4 chaotic Trump's years. Donald Trump. So that's why Biden was selected or elected in 2020. And now, to amazement of most of Americans, even Democrats, he has decided to run again.
But also Democrats didn't put anyone forward, anyone else.
It's quite difficult to replace a sitting president, incumbent president, who wants to run again. But now, as we have seen in the debate, the presidential debate between both gentlemen, both guys, his age is such advanced that he is not mentally or physically capable of being president. And now Democratic Party has a problem, what to do. To replace him, that would be risky. To stay with him will be risky as well. So not good options. Concerning Republicans, Trump had been indicted in several cases, and among Republican, especially grassroots, among ordinary Republican voters, he is perceived as a martyr to being tortured by nasty Democrats and nasty deep state Washington establishment. That's why they nominated him.
And this is a paradox again, because after all, a lot of those victims, especially sexual assaults, it seems like there are very strong proofs that he actually did it. He never was the most prudent of men, and he didn't even present himself as a one. There are videos, records, and a famous grab them by the pussy. So, and with him having so many wives, children from many marriages, he's not the role model of a, let's say, conservative father or a conservative leader. But still, all of those court problems in the court and the law made him stronger in the eyes of many common Republican voters and not weaker.
Yes, that's right. They perceive him as a martyr, as somebody who is being tortured by those bad guys. Some 10, 15 years ago, he would have no chance being nominated by the Republican Party, the party more conservative among those two parties, especially a party with a strong voice by Christians, especially evangelical Christians. So 10, 15 years ago, he would stand no chance. But now, they have been so desperate that the elite media, elite institutions like courts and many others are so aggressively secular liberal that we must not choose one of us, a good Christian gentleman or a lady with moral virtues. No, we must choose a Roman, somebody who enjoys fights and beatings.
So a bully.
A bully who is a pagan. Trump is a pagan, but he's a good pagan, fighting for us and protecting us. So many American evangelicals have a theory that Trump is like a Persian king Kyros, a pagan, who liberated Jews from Babylonian captivity and allowed them to return home to Jerusalem. So that's theory popular among evangelicals. Trump is no Christian, no moral man. He's a bully, a fighter, but he's, well, as Americans used to say, he's a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch, fighting for us.
Funny thing, but it's definitely probably the approach of it. And what Americans always afraid of, in love with, is power. Whenever the side that they are on, either Republicans or Democrats, but the power, that's why they romanticize Russia so often, because they see Russia still as a power. They see it through Dostoevsky, Tolstoy. They see those beautiful music, ballet, and they see it as a powerful thing. Putin as a leader. And the same thing with Trump. He might be ugly, but he is powerful, and he is also the manifestation of an American dream in such a way that he's rich. He has his own Trump tower. He took part in talk shows. He's laughable. He's enjoyable. So all of those elements are there for him.
And he's funny. At his meetings, he's funny. He has a strange sense of humor, and he can make people laugh. And that's one of the reasons of his popularity among Republican grassroots.
Yeah, also paradoxical in a way, because it's definitely not conservative, but still he is in favor, and we'll see which one of them wins in this running for election. But both of them are very old, as we mentioned, and this is something which picturizes that all major political leaders who shape the geopolitics of the world are very old men. Trump, Biden, but Xi Jinping as well. He's not young at all. So those are all people over 60 who could be, well, somehow in their retirement, but they are flourishing in the peak of their political careers. Is it something? How do you see it? We are looking for a figure of a fatherhood, someone who would take us through difficult times, or someone brutal enough to make a battle?
Well, it's more grandfatherhood than fatherhood. Being in their 60s, they would be young, but Trump was 78 in mid-June, and Biden will be 82 in November, 2 weeks after elections in November. So 78 and 82. That's really old. That's really old. And
could be a pope, but not a president.
That's right. Pope is old as well, but well, it's okay.
This is a good age for a pope. Is what I meant. It's but not for a president who is supposed to be much more active after all.
Active with real executive power, must be ready to react to crises, contingencies at 3 a.m., for example, anytime during the day or night. And I see only one light at the end of the tunnel, and that's elections 2028, where neither Trump nor Biden will run again. It would be physical impossibility, and both parties would nominate somebody younger.
And why do you think that the Republicans actually didn't decide to put Ron DeSantis as a runner?
He has not been very charismatic at public meetings, but that's not the main reason. He's a very successful governor, of a very important state, the third most populous state of Florida, economically booming state, success story. But my interpretation is, they Republicans have perceived him as a crown prince as a successor to King Trump. And when King is alive, why you cheeky boy are trying to become king when your king is still alive? So they reacted with something like, you are...
So he's a prince in waiting.
Yes, you are running too soon. Just wait. After these elections, Trump either will be or will not be elected. We shall see. But then in 28, you will be still young enough. You can run in those
with more
elections.
Experience.
Yes.
But definitely Ron DeSantis has been very successful in Florida, and on economical level, but also social level, making this, after all, difficult state with huge problems of immigration, a successful state, a stable one as well, without going to some, let's say, very extremism, neither a religious one or a social one. So it is truly a success. It was a success in pandemic as well.
Yes. Yes, he's been very successful. Florida looks like the United States will look in some few decades. Whites will not be a majority, it will be the largest minority, but minority. In Florida, there are many people from Latin America originally, of Hispanic origin, but fortunately for Florida, those Latin Americans are mostly from Cuba, and having experienced a communist regime, they are strongly anti-socialist, anti-communist, anti-socialist. So they are natural Republican voters, and that's why Florida is such a successful state. I was told the same is the case of Venezuelan Americans fleeing from first Chavez, now Maduro, and being very, very pro-Republican and anti-socialist.
Experiencing communism firsthand.
Yes.
This is something which ordinary American citizens, especially students of the most fancy universities, never experience. Because right now, of course, there's this movement among young students, and I remember studying at the Freie University in Berlin. I had this exchange students from US approaching and saying very loudly, "Oh, I'm a communist." And like, who are you to say you're a communist? You've never experienced a communism firsthand. You have iPhone in your hand. You are just benefiting from all the profits of the capitalism in every form. So you cannot be possibly communist. But still, this is this maybe a dream or something among especially students in the most important universities on the East Coast, that they identify either very left-wing or even communist.
Yes, they are spoiled kids from wealthy families. I would have a cure for them to spend 2 weeks in North Korea. Not more than 2 weeks, but even 2 weeks would be a cruel and unusual punishment for them. But that would cure them from their romantic, crazy ideas of communism.
We had this poor student, American student, who protested something, left something in North Korea and ended badly. But it seems like this is this element of communism that even it was proved in so many states that this doesn't work, it still goes to some string in the soul of the humanity that we still want to believe it. It's like a bully husband which beats his wife all the time, but the wives come back and come back and come back. What is it about it?
I would say that's like a disease. It's perennial. It cannot be cured once and for all times. I am afraid that it's similar with totalitarianism. We in Europe experienced two totalitarianisms, communism of Soviet type and the Nazism. And now we see totalitarianism inside Islam. Not all Muslims are Islamists. Most Muslims are Muslims. But about 15 to 20% of all Muslims in Western Europe are Islamists, meaning totalitarian ideologues using the religion of Islam as a something like a matter substance for their totalitarian form. Like socialism was the substance of communist totalitarianism, and nationalism was the substance of Nazi totalitarianism. Islam as a religion is a substance for Islamists and their totalitarian Islamist movements. Jihadis, they are called sometimes jihadis for good reason.
Trying to, again, have this universal claim, both totalitarianism has this universal claim to create a new social order. The same thing with Muslims.
To create new men, proletarian worker, Stachanovite in Soviet communism, or Aryan Superman, Übermensch in Nazi totalitarianism.
And a good Muslim would be a jihad who's someone who represents the values, the traditional values of the Islam, and is eager to die for his religion. That might be the totalitarian version of Islam. American
expert on Islam, Daniel Pipes, by the way, his family, his father Richard Pipes, was born in Polish town of Cieszyn during the 20s of the 20th century, and they were lucky enough as a family to escape to America in 1939. And Daniel Pipes claims that even though Islamists claim they are good Orthodox Muslims, in fact, according to Daniel Pipes, they are something unique, something completely new, imitating the European totalitarian examples of communism and Nazism and trying to impose them on Islam. And the original Muslims are the conservative Muslims, but not Islamists, according to Daniel Pipes' theory.
Interesting. Coming back to American election, American politics, because after all, we all have to be interested in it, because it all affects us. It affects Europe, it affects all over the world. Do you think, when you look at it, do you think that actually it is important, it will shape the foreign policy, the choice of Trump or Biden? Will it change it, or they will both stay at the same?
If Biden is re-elected, his foreign policy will be the same as it is now. So, doing the right thing, but too late, too little, too late. Let us look at the American help and aid to Ukraine. Eventually, they do the right thing, but too late, too little, too late. But still, it's better than nothing, of course. If Trump
so Biden is trying to create this sort of status quo where neither Russia nor Ukraine are winning.
Nobody should win, which is crazy for Ukrainians.
Because they are bleeding out.
Yes, exactly. And if Trump is elected, I think he will focus more on Eastern Asia, Western Pacific, and try to contain China. And his position will be, you Europeans, or us Europeans, you are wealthy enough,
deal with the Ukrainian
problem.
You
must help Ukraine, you Europeans, it's your moral duty, and I will take care of China and maybe Iran. So I think that, but still there are exceptions. For example, in last April, there was passed a bill in the US Congress, both chambers, both the House and the Senate passed a bill of financial aid to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, in order those countries could buy weapons, mostly American weapons. But it was an aid, financial aid, and Donald Trump was not against that. Many Republicans expected that he would be against such a financial aid. And according to, maybe it's well known here in Poland, what was crucial in order to convince Trump to give a green light to Republican congressmen to vote for that aid was a visit by Polish President Duda at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's residence in Florida. And President Duda, according to my friends in Czech politics, convinced President Trump. So even if Trump is elected president, still we Europeans who are not viscerally hostile against Trump, like many Western Europeans are, we who would like to have a, let us say, friendly relationship even with him, could try to influence him and perhaps convince him that Ukraine is too important to be left
alone. This
yes.
would, of course, be a dream, I think, and an important issue for all our countries of Eastern and Central Europe, because the Russian threat is the most real threat for us, much more real than the Chinese one. Especially this Russian imperialism.
Yes.
It never stopped from the World War II. Russia actually didn't lose this war, so they were never confronted like the Germans were with their guilt, with their reshaping of their model. Germans gave up. They changed their mentality to at least certain levels. We do all hope that, but the Russians were never taken into account what they did. They never needed to pay for gulags, for cutting, for murders, for even the Soviet bloc. It all just smoothly went to another political system and back again to another political system. But Putin is a Tsar.
Yeah, and that's the only European country which thinks it has done nothing wrong in history, which is crazy. Brits, French, Dutch, Spaniards feel guilty for colonialism, for example. But Russians, they think we were always brave and right and just, which is nonsense.
And Russia always thinks right now it is the last place of real values, the real Christianity, the real moral values, the real family, which in fact is it is also 50% of marriages who fall apart in Russia. There is a huge amount of abortion.
Higher abortion rate than in so-called decadent liberal West.
Exactly.
Higher.
So it is a country which uses this form of controlling society very strongly. And of course, all the atrocities which happened right now in Ukraine, we see them firsthand. And those are pictures which we thought we will never see in Europe again. This is something against the humanity, the slaughter of children, slaughter of the elderly, raping women, raping children, destroying cities, destroying books, libraries, everything what comes with this culture. I remember there was this strong fear of the Russians will bomb Lviv. And with bombing Lviv, they annihilate 1,000 years of Polish history as well. I remember that the archaeologists were just running with all of those materials to protect the cemetery, the Wuchakov cemetery and cathedral. So just make this all survive, because otherwise we will not have this history for future generations. But the rest of the Ukraine is facing this distraction in the eyes of the Europe, just looking at them like, will you bleed out or not?
Oh yes, Russian society is a sick society, desperate society, and unfortunately I see no hope for Russian society, because they have always relied on the power of the Tsar. I am just reminded about a memorable line from a letter by French aristocrat Marquis de Custine, who visited Tsarist Russia in 1839, something like that. And then he wrote to his friend, French friend, "My good friend, if you have an unhappy son, just send him to Russia. Everybody who returns home from Russia is a happy man."
I think it's a wonderful punchline for our episode as well. Looking at the perspective of the American elections, for Europe, again, it is important who will win and what will be his approach to Ukraine and to the war there. With Biden, the same status quo.
Yes.
With Trump, might be a shift, but might be a desperate situation for Ukraine. We never know.
Yes, we never know. Trump is unpredictable. So we cannot say for sure that he will abandon Europe or Ukraine, or we cannot be sure that he will help us and Ukraine. So unpredictable, and maybe he himself does not know now what he will do once elected, if elected.
This is true, and this is like sitting on a bump a little bit, but also extremely interesting to watch and observe. And this is something what we recommend to you, the viewers of Common Sense Generation. Watch and observe what's going on in US, because after all, it is going to influence the whole Europe and the whole world. Thank you for watching our show, and I also thank Polish National Foundation for making this video podcast possible. This is Common Sense Generation.